So I identified as a gay male. It was very early on in life, so probably around about 13, 14, I kind of started developing feelings for people of the same sex. And at the time, given my background, certainly I didn't know anyone who was gay. I'd never met anyone who was gay. I don't even think I'd heard the word gay.
I was a real fan of S Club 7, and I remember like overly crushing on Rachel and Joe and thinking, this isn't quite, normal. And then, yeah, I really kind of knew, I was quite young, I guess, about 14.
When I knew at a very early age that I was gay, and yeah, going back to sort of like, primary school, from about 6 or 7 years of age, I knew that I was attracted to boys. And through my teenage years, that became more of what I was about.
So I came out at the age of 14, so I was still at school, and I didn't really know what I was at that age. I heard gay, but didn't quite understand it, didn't get taught it, and it wasn't something that I could ask my parents. So
I suppose you could say I've been doing this since I was about 3 years old. I was really fortunate that my family were accepting. Like my great grandmother, she was 98, said he's either going to be gay or he's going to be something else. And obviously I was something else, and that was quite profound throughout my childhood.
Well, I first rather suspected I was gay when I was 14 and was having an affair with my friend. And I did broach the subject with my mother, who went absolutely mad. I mean, that was in 1974 or something, so that was quite some time ago. It wasn't received well, and I immediately went back in, and within 2 years, at 16, I was married.
Well, I first identified as gay when I was approximately about 22, and I was in denial for most of the previous time, because that was quite some time ago. That's back in the 80s, and I was from a farming family, and it was completely taboo, not talked about, and never revealed it to the family at all.
I came out at 23 to myself, prepared to tell the family that next time I was asked, because I was asked on a regular basis, don't know why, don't know what gave them the clue, but next time, and it took a year for them to ask, 24, came out, and I came out singing and dancing.
Whereas I came out very quietly, and I didn't come out singing and dancing. I would get in the car on a Friday night and sneak up to Bristol and go to a gay club, but not tell anyone. So I'd be totally on my own.
This started 2.5 years ago as a career, but I've been a performer since the age of 15, but drag 2.5 years. I was quite concerned about telling my parents about this. They accepted me as a gay son, which was great, but I was more nervous about telling them of my profession than my sexuality.
So what I would say is I've realised that when I was at school, it wasn't something that was ever talked about, or it just didn't feature at all. And I think the shift for me, realising that actually probably quite a few of my friends actually were, certainly a lot of my male friends were gay, and that came when I was a student. So that was the early 80s.
At the time I knew something didn't necessarily fit in with the stereotypical rules, but I didn't realise what gay actually meant, so I just kind of kept it to myself, and although the impulse wasn't really strong at the time, I didn't feel the need to act upon it until much later on in life.
I lived in a village at that time in Backwell, and I didn't know of any other gay people at that age. It was only when I joined a basketball team, a women's basketball team, when I was 14, and still thinking I was like the only gay in the village, until we went for a night out in Bristol, went on a basketball social, and then all the women just kind of started kissing each other, and I was like, okay, right, yep, I'm not the only one, awesome. And yeah, that was when I kind of felt comfortable to then go on and tell my friends and my parents, because I then saw that as, okay, this is okay, like this is normal.
Initially, it was such a scary feeling. You know, I'm a 50-year-old man now, so we're looking at 35 years ago, when to be gay and to be out was very different, and I hid it, and I tried to have girlfriends, but they probably lasted a day, because I knew from a very, very early age that I was different. And today, when I say I was different, that doesn't sit right with me, because today I'm a gay man. But 35 years ago, it was very different.
At school, I got picked on quite a bit. It wasn't unusual to have a bad day at school. Going back to my school days, it wasn't a fun time. I think the only subject that I enjoyed was art. As soon as I left school and you hit college, it's much more freeing and you could be yourself. I started clubbing at the age of 14 as well, so I was very, very young, and do not do it. But whilst I was out clubbing, I met people who were the same as me. I had no other family members that I could speak to, so I found another family within the LGBTQ community.
My parents tried to guide me the best that they could. Obviously, having a transgender child to heterosexual people with a normal daughter, or a genetically born daughter that doesn't want to change, was quite difficult for them, like knowing the path that they should take. My hair was grown when I was younger, and it was cut off. My mum and dad tried to engage me in male sports, so football and rugby, and I did excel in them, and I did try my hardest. I've never really put myself out there as a transgendered person, because I've never felt like a transgendered person. I've only ever felt how I felt, and that is as a woman. As a girl when I was younger, why aren't I doing these things? And I tried to take steps myself before I was even of an age that I could have the operation or even have pills. My mum found me with a pair of nail scissors in the bathroom. I locked the bathroom door, and I was trying to take away something that didn't belong, and that I know that didn't belong. And I think that was really hard for my parents as well as for myself.
There were no lesbians. I didn't know any lesbians. I was probably the only one in the world. And also, I thought that lesbians were those kind of people in those kind of places. I didn't think it was me, if you like. They were other people. So, again, at 19, I came out to my mother, because no matter what happened, no matter how straight I tried to be, I kept accidentally being a lesbian by mistake. So I told my mother again, and she drew up what I now know to be a business plan. And basically what she wanted me to do was leave my little boy with her. And at that time I was living in Plymouth, and she wanted me to work as a prostitute and send her money, because in her mind, being a prostitute and being a lesbian were the same thing, and it was all to do with morals or morality, and in her eyes, if you were a lesbian, you had no morals.
The Oasis, remember the
Oasis? We knock on the door to go in, and then the little shutter opens, and they look at you and up and down like this, and then you creep in. That's after half an hour in the car, waiting to make sure there was nobody coming past the club to see you go in.
In case you saw somebody in Bristol that knows you.
Yeah.
And the only people that would see you would be the other gay ones.
Yes. So that was my particular life, and that happened for 4 or 5 years. And I lived a double life, definitely. Ashamed, I think the word is.
Were you ashamed?
I think I was. I think because it was so taboo, the politics at the time were some Thatcher's Britain, and it was all Clause 28 and AIDS, and it was all, oh, you mustn't be gay, you're going to die of AIDS. And
I can answer the question, how did the AIDS epidemic affect people? Because I was asked that question, who gave you that love bite? Was it a boy or a girl? The day the Sun had a black front page with 2 words on it, gay plague. I came out that day.
Again, you know, going back to the 80s, for me, you know, the horror around the narrative around AIDS was so high profile. And I think as a consequence of that, there were a lot of us who thought, recognised the fact that actually we knew nothing about what it was like to be, you know, a member of the LGBT community. And to be honest, I don't think there was anywhere for somebody like me to be part of. And that is the really different thing about the 21st century.
So the first time I remember being attracted to guys was probably about 8 or 9 years old. It was that whole, back in my day, we had a Freeman's catalogue, and it was finding the underwear section in the men's bit quite arousing. And it was that point that I was like, that's my first memory of being attracted to men and thinking, oh, okay, hello. But it wasn't until my first gay experience was probably when I was about 17, when I was at college. And it was then that I kind of went, oh, okay. Up until that point, I'd had girlfriends. So it was about 17 when I first kissed a guy, I suppose, and then told my family and went from there. I'm very, very lucky to have very supportive parents. My parents divorced, so I had to tell them separately. So it was kind of easier to kind of go one at a time. But yeah, they were both absolutely fine. My mum was like, I've always wanted a gay son. And Dad was like, yeah, whatever. So it was all very kind of like cool. I mean, and which is quite progressive parents, because I'm in my more so I'd have come out in the early 2000s, about 2001, which is still quite a time when a lot of parents would have still been a bit funny. We've come a long way in the last 10, 15 years now. I think it's more acceptable, and yeah, I was very lucky to have parents that supported who and what I am.
I'd actually got into a heterosexual relationship. You know, I was following the normal mold, and I met a woman who I got on really, really well with, and before I knew it, I was 17 years old and she was expecting our first child. So at that moment, I hadn't had an experience with another man. So for me, that was my life now. I've got a child on the way. This is my life. Settle down and make peace with it. And it was not until our relationship broke down a couple of years later, and that was very tough in itself. Once we'd had a time of separation and I was 21 years old, I'd managed to become independent. I was able to provide for my children. I maintained a good relationship with my ex-partner, and I was in a strong enough place to say, you know what, I am gay and I'm now actually going to be myself. At the time, my family were not necessarily surprised. I wouldn't say they were overly happy about it at the same time, although I did have friends and family around me who were a great support network when I first came out. And it was the strangest feeling when I was 21 years old and I was actually being myself. The endorphins, the happiness, it was outstanding. It was something I'd never felt before, to actually be myself and to actually say to people, I'm a gay man. It was fantastic.
My dad was awesome. He was just like, yeah, I already knew. You know, makes no difference to me at all. And yeah, he's been amazing, like ever since. It's never made any difference in our relationships. Really, really supportive. My mum's first reaction, she burst into tears, and you know, her worry was, oh, I'm not going to have grandchildren, which I guess was a dream for her. That over time, as I've kind of explained, no, Mum, this can still happen. Right? It's not the traditional way, but you're still gonna have your grandkids. And yeah, she's like totally accepted it now. It took a bit more time for her, I think, as well, because I was the only child, whereas my dad has 4 children. But yeah, she's totally cool with it now as well. So yeah, very lucky.
I told my mother when I was 17. It was, yeah, I mean, my mum had various mental health issues, and I've got a 2-year older brother who used to bully me a lot, and you know, my relationship with my brother has never been a relationship as a brotherly relationship. I was called by my mum's multiple boyfriends a big girl's blouse, and yeah, it had a significant impact on my mental health for many, many, many years. And to numb that pain, you know, I used alcohol and, you know, other substances to numb that pain. And it's that very pain of not feeling accepted by my family that really, yeah, it brought me to my knees, you know, just over 6 years ago. And you know, hence I needed to make a move and start a fresh life.
My family were really good. I think it's the typical things that everyone goes through, children being one of the main ones. Oh, we're not going to have grandchildren. I was surprised then, we've got 3. But apart from that, no, my family were really good. I've got 2 little sisters as well, so they're amazing. So it's a nice family experience for us.
We started talking to people when I was 9. I went into the doctors. I said to Mum that I wasn't feeling very well. And so obviously being a caring mother, she took me to the doctors. And the doctor said, what's wrong? And I was saying to my mum that I had a bad belly. And I said to the doctor, I was like, I don't feel like I'm in the right body. And my mum sort of looked at me as though I didn't know we were coming here for this. Like, I caught her off guard, I caught the doctor off guard, and that's when I was referred to something called CAMS, so I could talk more about it. So I've been seeing and talking about my life round and round in circles for years, jumping through hoops. I just spoke to 2 psychologists, one training and one fully qualified, and they really helped. I think that was a really important process. They spoke to me alone, they spoke to my parents alone, they spoke to us together as a family, because they know that it isn't just one person's decision. It isn't just me, it is everybody else around me. And I think at that age you don't quite know how big the world really is and how much hate there can be.
There's a lot more to my life than just waking up and thinking, yeah, I'm a lesbian. So obviously I had a very interesting childhood. I spent a fair amount of time in and out of care. I didn't have any real sense of self. So it was hard for me to know who I was at all. And then throw in the lesbian element, and then it was even harder. So it was. I was probably 22 before I sort of said, "Up yours. This is me, and this is how it's going to be." By that time, I'd lost my first child, and I had my second child, who was a daughter. I lost. He died. I didn't lose him. So. And then I ran away to Greenham Common and saved the world, so you can all be grateful for that. And that was the beginning for me of my real lesbian identity. And being at Greenham was fantastic. I mean, lots of people have lots and lots of different ideas about Greenham and what it was for them. But for me, it was somewhere where I could be part of a community. It was somewhere I belonged. It was somewhere where it was okay to be me. And I was still grieving over the loss of my son. And I started to look at myself, to, you know, that journey of self-discovery. It sort of started big time about that time.
My brother always called me a puff.
Did he?
And I didn't have a clue.
No.
Not a clue.
No, it was just, you're in denial and then you find, oh, well, perhaps I am then. I'm going to have to live with this.
My coming out was a little less salubrious than that. Because back in the day in Weston, what we had back then was cottaging and the local bar for Ammy-Drammies, really, that started at 10 o'clock at night. And the cross-pollination of the two, so coming out was almost like, it was a back bar, so it was hidden. So people in Weston nowadays, walking into a place like over the road, the bar we've got now, totally different people wouldn't be seen walking into an establishment. In fact, there are still people like that in this town to this day. Young people being brought up now, they don't know they're born, do they?
They don't. They certainly don't.
They
No.
don't know they're born.
No, they certainly don't.
They don't know what's gone before. And a lot's gone before. Sounding like a couple of old people.
We are. Yeah. No, I'm not we are, but we are.
I think society has come along a long way, and I think it's very much more open and spoken about nowadays. I think we could do more. There was a lot of subsections and a lot of subcategories we could go into that could do with a lot more in-depth looking into. But I think the broad spectrum of gay, lesbian, bisexual is very openly society. Now it's a lot more acceptable. I could sit with a partner in a nice cocktail bar with a guy, whereas 10 years ago I probably wouldn't have. Yeah. I'd have had to have gone to a gay bar, whereas now I can go a lot more places. And as a drag queen, I like to do things like I've done a photo shoot in a city centre in full drag in the daytime, because I find it quite thought-provoking. And I like to push and see what people's reactions are and how are people going to react to a man in a dress in the middle of a city centre at midday. And the reactions have always, the time I did it was very, very positive. Yeah. Lots of guys wolf whistling, and like, it wasn't the reaction I expected. I expected a bit of abuse, but it never happened. I think 10, 15 years ago, yeah, I think I wouldn't have had the confidence to walk down the street as a man in a dress, let alone not getting abuse.
I've got two 20-something daughters where, you know, everybody amongst their peer groups and a lot, you know, significant number of their friends have gone through a whole realisation about their sexual identity. And as a consequence, both of my daughters have thought about those issues in relation to themselves in a way that genuinely, when I was 20, it was just not something that was ever on the agenda. So things have changed so much in that 30 years.
I think growing up in the north, the society, although there was a lot of change going on, obviously people before us, generations before, have been fighting for equality among the LGBT community, and it was legal to be gay. There was still a lot of negativity around it, a lot of bullying. People were too embarrassed to come out or too scared to come out, and it was still something that was done behind closed doors for the vast majority of people. I mean, certainly for myself, growing up in the north, I wouldn't have come out. Certainly when I was a lot younger, with the support network that I had, it would have been way too much. I think as I've got older and I attend prides and I meet people who are you know, the same as me. I am the same as everybody else. What my sexual preference is, you know, it's not a massive deal, but I'm far more comfortable and confident nowadays. But back in the 80s and 90s, it was a very scary place from my point of view.
I do think, on a whole, the girls, especially in school, the girls that came out had a bit of an easier time than the guys did. And yeah, I mean, I think I've been quite lucky as a personal experience. I haven't ever had too much kind of discrimination towards me personally. I think the worst few things that have happened is I've been walking down the street and people have you know, openly said, is that a girl or a boy? Because I had short hair. And it was like, that hurt. But at the end of the day, you know, spoke to a couple of people about it, got the support I needed, and realised that it was okay to have short hair. Like, you know, just I'm a girl, doesn't mean I've got to have long hair. This is how I'm comfortable, so this is how I'm going to be. Looking back, say 10 years ago, I think there was a lot more stigma and negativity about gay people. And I've seen through the years of how everyone now is just so much more accepting. And I think that's because of the awareness that is out there. It just seems a lot more common, a lot more people coming out, a lot more people accepting. And yeah, it's great to see.
As a teenager today, there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of broadcasts on TV. There's a lot of people in the communities, sports, celebrities that, you know, you can identify with and you can see and that are visible and that are out. And yeah, so hopefully, you know, it's a far easier journey for, you know, a young teenager today than it was 50 years ago.
When I first came out as gay, I had to find my people by going out and clubbing, whereas now social media has come into play and you don't need to go out. You can chat to people on forums, you can find people to connect with, and that's broadened and opened up so many pathways for the LGBTQ community to join together, from all different walks of life, backgrounds, ethnicities, everything. It's just opened up this massive platform for people to just join together and feel safer in a community.
I mean, being queer now, actually, one of the things I think that the trans community are where we were in the 80s, yeah? And so for me, that is a really good, sort of good comparison. And I mean, I'm a strong supporter of trans people and their identities, and I think it's really, really important that we get behind them. And I mean, all that awful stuff at London Gay Pride, where they, you know, the lesbians sort of are saying that trans women are taking away the lesbian identity. I mean, I think that's a load of rubbish, and I think that we need to be there with the trans community, supporting them and fighting their battle, because that was our battle. And unless we fight, and young gay people now, no, they don't. They don't have the same struggles. They have different struggles. And one of them, I think, is that once you did come out and you did accept that you were a bit dodgy, you could then go to dodgy places and hang out with other dodgy people. Whereas now, that doesn't really exist. So that for the young coming out, they're coming out at school, they are integrated into society. And I mean, I always say that, you know, they're what I call straight gays. So they have totally normal straight lives. And when I was younger, it was very political, very, very political. It had to be. In much the same way, I see a lot of that anger and that activism in the trans community that we saw in the lesbian and gay community when I was younger.
Today, yeah, they got Facebook and everything. They got online help, and they've got various groups and organisations and support groups. Never had any of that. The nearest thing we had was Larry Grayson, wasn't it?
John Inman.
John Inman. We had stereotypes, and we were expected to be John Inmans and Larry Graysons.
And people didn't like you to move outside of those boundaries of their perception of what a gay person was. If you didn't have a pink cravat, why not?
Exactly.
So I got a pink cravat.
Did you?
Yeah.
I resisted.
And I waved it at them sarcastically, you know.
It's definitely a lot easier. They can go into the bar across the road and pick up a leaflet, and they'll give them a phone number that can help people talk about.
They don't have to go in the bar. That's probably on their notice board at school.
It probably is now, yeah. Yeah, I've not been to school for 40 years.
I think it is a lot easier. I think people are a lot more open. There's still certainly challenges there and a lot more work to be done, but I think society is far more open. There is still pockets of bullying and discrimination that goes on. I mean, it happens every day, whether it's just a bit of a joke. It seems that it can be used, but it's used in a way that's seen as a negative rather than a positive. But I think it is a lot easier for children, but again, it just really depends on the network they have around them. Still, children are rejected from home for the fact that they're gay or transitioning or want to transition. So challenges are still there, but I think it is a lot better.
I think social media makes lots of things accessible, and especially for people that are questioning or unsure. I think social media is a great tool to help connect people to where they want to be or should be or feel they need to be, or ask those questions that as a teenager I wouldn't have been able to ask. I'd have had to have a friend that I'd have trusted to be able to say, oh, I've got this problem, I think I'm attracted to guys. And then you run the risk of the rejection or the abuse or it getting out. Or whereas nowadays, social media, you can talk to somebody and you're anonymous.
I can say, hand on heart, I feel that having spent the last 18 months basically total immersion in the local LGBT community, that I see all of the work that people are doing to connect with others, shall we say, and it's just doing more and more, and it's about, I genuinely try to encourage all of my friends and associates or whatever. And it has been an interesting journey because it's like a sort of reverse thing of to become accepted within a community that from necessity has had to have its own identity. But it's also about the judgments that straight friends and associates of mine have made about me, and that has been an interesting dynamic to actually say, you know what, I am still exactly who I am and I always have been. It's your perception that has changed, and I think that is the key to a lot of this, is about perceptions.
I think it is more acceptable. I think now if you tell your parents you're gay, they are probably much more likely to want to support you, to want to find out information to help you. Whereas, you know, when I came out, you just got a clip round your ear and told, don't be so stupid. And so it is different. I don't think it's necessarily easier because, you know, we know what we know. And so coming out as gay, you still have all that, oh my God, sort of stuff going on. Doesn't matter how old you are.
So the roots of Pride, you know, for those that don't know, in 1969, you know, in June there was a riot in a place called Stonewall Inn. The first brick was thrown by a trans member of the community, Marsh P. Johnson. You know, for me, Stonewall was a significant, if not the significant, the biggest thing and the best thing, even though it was painful for a lot of people at that time, that has ever happened for the LGBT community.
She paved the way. To throw that brick is, it takes some guts. It takes some courage to say, no, we are here.
Pride in Weston-super-Mare has been going on for 5 years. a handful of people literally nurtured our tiny little Pride to where it is today. Last year, we celebrated our largest ever turnout. We went from a one-day event to a two-day event with an after-show party, and everything was a sellout. We had to battle with the wind and the rain blowing the top of our stage off, but we had a massive turnout. And what is, I think, very unique about Weston-super-Mare Pride is it really keeps the focus on inclusivity. I mean, everywhere around the country, you can't go anywhere now without a Pride in the summer. Bristol, London doing fantastic Pride. I think what makes Western Pride unique is it is very focused on including everyone, our straight allies. It speaks up for everybody, and it is so important in these small towns where hate crime continues to happen. Over 1,000 hate crimes logged last year. And a lot of the focus is going to be acknowledging the milestones that we've achieved over the last 50 years in the UK, and also looking at an educational programme, because I am aware lots of people attend the Pride events as a form of celebration, but I think we often forget that it is still a political movement because there's still lots that needs to be done in the UK.
Yeah, do you know, I can't really quite remember how I got involved in it. I think it was like a conversation at the pub. Do you want to get involved? And I was kind of, well, you know, what's it all about? And as soon as I realised that it was to basically help people go through and deal with what I've already been through, and the chance to help people be okay with who they are and spread awareness and just show everyone that love is love, I was totally sold. I was like, yeah, I'm in. So yeah, I've been on the Western Pride team now for this is my 4th year. So I help out with like the website, PR advertising, and then on the day I just help out. And the vibe in the park, like we're just getting bigger and bigger every year, and the vibe this summer just gone in July was incredible. Never ever seen, you know, people arguing or kicking off, or everyone is just there and just like loving each other, and it's amazing. So next year we're celebrating the 50th year of Stonewall, which is absolutely huge. So yeah, as I say, it's just going to be bigger and better and even more of a celebration than we've ever had before. And I think it's really important to make people aware of kind of the message and why Pride is so important and where it's all come from and the problems that people had 50 years ago. I wasn't actually aware of it until about a year ago, and I was just like, wow. And I felt so privileged to live you know, in a day and age where I'm not going to get assaulted or beaten up for being who I am. I think it's massively important for people to understand, you know, especially, you know, the younger generation. They might think Pride is just an excuse for gay people or LGBT people to get together and get drunk. It's like, no, there's a reason why we're doing this, is because there was a time where it wasn't safe to do this and people weren't allowed to be who they are.
The Gay Pride movement for me is about the protest, and it's about acknowledging that some people, you know, even today in 2018, 2019, still aren't able to say I'm LGBT plus in their communities. So the Pride teams that I'm part of, and the UK Pride Network and Euro Pride, you know, they are family today. They are some of the most beautiful people in my life. I'm totally blessed to be and privileged to be the lead for Weston-super-Mare, along with the new team that have come about this year. What I'm able to do in Weston-super-Mare is incredible, and the effects it has on others and their families and their friends. Yeah, the Western Pride team is a family, and it's a really tight family that is, you know, I'm an honour. I feel so honoured to and privileged to be in that family, and we always go back to our core. And you know, when I start team meetings, we talk about, you know, why we're here and, you know, what does it mean, what message are we going to carry this year and all that. And it's always sort of reflecting on, you know, what needs to be done in the community, in our community, in West-super-Mare and North Somerset. What message can we give out there to, you know, people who can't actually come onto the park or can't go onto the parade? What message do we want to portray when we're, you know, doing our publicity, when we're doing interviews and stuff? And the message is simple, you know, we are here and we are here to stay. And if and only if you feel comfortable to come and engage with the event, engage with Pride, then come along and you will be, you know, made very welcome. If you don't feel you can do that, then that's okay as well. But just know that you are, even if you're sitting isolated, you are still part of this, because, you know, the movement, the Pride movement is exactly that. It, you know, it moves amongst the community and it reaches out in significant ways that, you know, even if you just hear or see the poster or see the rainbow flag, you know, that flag reaches out right across the board in the LGBT community. And, you know, you don't have to come and hold that flag. But what you do need to know, if you identify as LGBT+, that flag is also yours when we carry it.
Pride is made up of a few things. So we have the march, and the marches, you can come join that. It's a massive, liberating experience. The first time me and my other half walked in a march, I felt like I was about to tear up, grabbed his hand, and it was the most probably special thing I felt, to walk down our local high street holding hands with my partner. You also have the day event where there's so many different people that come to watch people sing, dance. So you can come to Western, you can speak to anyone, and everyone's going to be friendly to you, and everyone's going to be accepting and just welcoming. So Western Pride for me is a huge, huge positive for the town.
Heterosexuals, oh, we don't have heterosexual pride. Well, no, of course you don't, because, like, you don't need it. But we need to stand, we need to say we are here and we're queer, and we're not going away. And yes, I think we need to celebrate our community. We need to come together as a community and know that we're there, because it can be really isolating. And even now, in a big city like London, it can be isolating. And so I imagine here it would probably be more isolating. I'm quite lucky. I've got a cousin who lives in Weston who's also a lesbian, so we're going to start a gang.
So why is it important to have Gay Pride in 2019? Probably to educate people what we've been through for the last 50 years since Stonewall in 1969. It was the fact that people were brave enough then to come out and protest and to demand equal rights. Now that we got them, they didn't just turn up, we had to work for them, and it's taken virtually 50 years to do it. So Western Pride is a good community feel, and for a small town, it does tend to bring people together, and it's well respected Pride in the circuit, actually, because it does the community thing, and a lot of people who wouldn't normally go to such a thing come along, and they're not coming into like they would have done 40 years ago to laugh and to jeer and to take the mickey. They're coming in because they think, well, this is not bad, they've achieved quite a lot here.
It's a very good atmosphere at Western Pride. Very good atmosphere.
Gay Pride, I think, it's just a great way of celebrating who you are, what you are. And again, asking those questions on a personal basis. So taking away the social media, it's giving you an avenue of connecting with people, like-minded people, and actually talking to people, which I think is really important nowadays. We all get stuck behind screens and scrolling through YouTube feeds and watching things online when there's people out there you can talk to, and back in my day you had to. And I think it's really important to get back to being able to speak to people face to face. And I think Prides are a great advocate of that. They're kind of like a, come and talk to us, come and enjoy some entertainment, come and enjoy the food, come and enjoy just the social aspect of it. I think it's a real key thing in society to us to keep doing. Well, first of all, they've got a fantastic host at WSM Pride. I love WSM Pride. I do prides across the country. Major prides including Manchester, London, Brighton, Bristol, like all the big cities. And the one thing I like about the WSM Pride is its sense of community. So when I was here this year, I had people asking questions that you don't hear in the big city prides. Because sometimes in the big city ones, it's all about getting drunk and pulling. Whereas somewhere like this, there was kids, there was families, there was grandparents, there was a mother that said, my son was born female and he needs somebody to talk to. And her son was 7. And she identified him as her son. But she's like, he's born female, but can you help me? Can we, is there anybody here we can talk to? And it was such a nice, open conversation, which you wouldn't get walking down the high street. And that's what I love about WSM Pride, is just it's not just community, it's a family event that's very open to everybody.
It is the perfect opportunity to have that collective gathering, because for me, collectivism is the way to get change, because until you hit critical mass, being a lone voice is, soul destroying quite often, having been a lone voice on a lot of things. And so for me, looking at it, I know in the 5 years that I've been in Weston and seeing the growth of Pride, the fact that now people see it as part of Weston's culture, and that whole statement, I suppose, about having what is effectively a protest march through the town is a reminder, and it gets people talking. And then to be able to celebrate with a Pride event and to have a festival effectively, which is a genuine celebration of diversity, only which way, within this locality. I think what WSM Pride does is it sticks to those values, and it is genuinely LGBT plus, and we are all of equal validity within that. It's not just gay pride. The fact that the acts and the offerings and the entertainment, there is genuinely something for everybody there. So I think that's what keeps it quite distinct. And it has, it has grown organically over 5 years, and it has stayed very true to those values.